Buenas tardes. So I am very honored, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all today on the 90th anniversary of LULAC's history here in this country, and to be here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a swing state in this presidential election that will decide the future of Latinos and Americans throughout this country. So I'm just going to give you a little couple of stories. How many of you ever heard of el cucuy? El abuelito, la abuelita, anybody ever scare you con el cucuy? See, LULAC has been fighting cucuys throughout history. Since 1929, LULAC has been taking on the cucuys of the world. For those of you who are language impaired, the boogeyman. Okay? And el cucuy, back in 1929, were the Texas Rangers who would fight who would arrest people. If more than 5 Mexican Americans got together, they could be arrested and they could be lynched. That was the LULAC that faced that. But you know what? LULAC took on those cucuys, and they won. They won when there were segregated schools in California, and in Mendez versus Westchester, we went to the Supreme Court and we ended segregated schools before Topeka versus Kansas. When there were attempts by politicians, el cucuy, that said, you know what, you need to pay a poll tax to vote. You need to have an English-only literary test to vote. It was LULAC who knocked down that cucuy and defeated them to allow every Latino the right to vote in America. And as we move forward, we saw other cucuys pop their heads up, okay? And those cucuys started doing gerrymandering, voter suppression. And just this year in Texas, they tried to purge 98,000 Latino voters, U.S. naturalized voters from the rolls. And it was LULAC who filed suit the Monday after. 3 weeks later, we won, and the state of Texas had to pay us $450,000 and put those voters back on the rolls. So we knocked down those cucuys. Now, we no longer have cucuys, now we have La Llorona. And La Llorona has big orange hair. Okay. And this Llorona, like the cucuys before, is trying to terrorize our kids, trying to divide our families. And this Llorona just announced that on Sunday they're going to launch raids across America. But we're going to tell this Llorona, just like we told the cucuys, when you do that, when you try to separate our families, when you try to be the kidnapper in chief of the United States of America, you are shaming America, and LULAC will stand with those immigrants, with Americans, to stop you from dividing our families and taking the children. La Llorona also says that by executive order, he's going to put a question on the census about citizenship, even though they just lost the Supreme Court battle on that issue. Okay? So I'm putting the Llorona, the kidnapper in chief, on notice that the day he signs that order, LULAC will file a lawsuit that same day to take you to court and stop you, because every person deserves to be counted. And just because your last name ends with an EZ, because you're Hernandez, Lopez, or Sanchez, you're no less than a Miller or a Smith or a Jones. We're the same in America, and everybody should be counted. So, this is a unity luncheon. And in this unity luncheon, we must unite like never before to stand up to La Lloronas and the cucuys of the world. I was in Clint, Texas, where there is a concentration camp with barbed wire fences, and I'm not making this up. I was there. Go to my Facebook page, Domingo Garcia, with barbed wire fences, armed guards for 2-year-olds, for 4-year-olds, for 8-year-olds, that are crammed in cages. And for breakfast, an oatmeal cookie and a carton of milk. For lunch, a burrito and a glass of water. And for dinner, ramen noodles and a Coke every day, okay? And they sleep on the floor. We have to stand up for those children. We got to stop the number of bodies that we see floating in the Rio Grande. We got to have a bipartisan, immigration reform bill that passes Congress and is signed by this president, whether he likes it or not, that finally brings an end to what we're seeing on the border. So we are hoping that this presidential debate will allow those candidates who are running for president to deal with our future. One of those candidates is here with us today. He is the former mayor of San Antonio, the 7th largest city in America. Anybody from San Antonio in the house? He became the Secretary of HUD under President Obama. And he had, for those of you who saw the debates in Miami last couple of weeks ago, he did a terrific job. I want to introduce to you the potential next president of the United States, Julián Castro.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. It's great to be with LULACers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. First of all, let me say gracias. Thank you very much, Domingo, for the introduction, but more importantly for your leadership during these times in our country when we need LULAC more than ever. Thank you for your strong leadership. Let's give it up for your president, Domingo Garcia. I want to give a shout out and thank CEO Cindy Benavides and all of the board and staff and the chapters who are here. Thank you for the great work that you're doing across our country. I also want to give a shout out to Joe Henry from Iowa, whose endorsement I was proud to get just a few days ago, and to all of the LULACers out there in Iowa. Of course, I come to you today as a proud son of Texas, and especially of the west side of San Antonio. It's wonderful to be with an organization that has done so much over 90 years to help ensure that our country lives up to the words in its founding documents so that everybody, no matter what they look like, including the Latino community, can achieve its dreams. You know, I grew up with a grandmother that had come over from Mexico when she was 7 years old with her little sister because their parents had died. And they came across in 1922 through Eagle Pass and ended up on the west side of San Antonio. She never graduated even from elementary school, and because of that, she worked as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter. She raised my mom as a single parent, and my mom raised my brother and I as a single parent too. My mother was a hellraiser when she was young. She was part of the old Chicano movement of the late 1960s and early 1970s. And when my mother was 23, she ran for city council in San Antonio. She ran with a slate called the Committee for Barrio Betterment. Their slogan was, "Give government back to the people," which reminds me that the more things change, the more they stay the same. On April 6, 1971, all of the slate lost, the four folks that ran. But the night of their defeat, one of the newspaper journalists asked my mom about the loss, and she said, "We'll be back." And 30 years later, in 2001, I was elected as the youngest city councilman at that time in San Antonio's history. And so, in the spirit that LULAC was formed and that it has worked for so long, I stand before you as a proud American to just imagine that 2 generations after my grandmother, Victoria, came to this country from Mexico with hardly anything, that one of her grandsons, my brother Joaquin, is a member of the United States Congress, and the other one is here to ask for your vote for President of the United States. Now, I know that that progress didn't happen by accident. It happened because of you and so many people like you across our country who have been committed to making sure over the generations that we have equal rights, that we have voting rights, that we have access to good quality education, that we have access to fair housing, to ensure that little by little in this struggle for our country to reach its full potential and that every individual can live up to his or her dreams, you have been a part as LULACers of that progress. You have so much to be proud of from these 90 years. And today, we need your voice and your fight more than ever before. Today, the choice that we have before us is whether we're going to continue to expand opportunity in our country, one that recognizes the beautiful diversity and the strength in it of America, or one that goes backward. We have a president who is committed to taking this country backward, and over the last 4 years of his campaign and of his administration, has chosen to put a target on the back of the Latino community, especially our immigrant community, cruelly separating little children from their parents, warehousing human beings in overcrowded, unsanitary conditions along the border, threatening raids to terrorize immigrant families throughout our country, and disobeying the orders of the court by trying to put a citizenship question on the U.S. Census to chill participation and cheat American communities of their due. We need you, now more than ever, to stand up and fight back, to push back against this narrow, myopic, hateful agenda. And who better? From the very beginning, LULAC has been a part of our progress. I'm running for president because I believe that it's time for new energy and new leadership. That it's time for a president that recognizes that we're in one nation, and in the years to come, we must move forward toward one destiny. And that destiny, in this 21st century for us, is to be the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation in the world. To invest in things like universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds. To improve K-12 education by paying teachers what they deserve. To make higher education universal by going tuition-free at public state universities, community colleges, and job training and certification programs. To change to a healthcare system where everybody, no matter who you are, where you live, how much money you have or don't have, can get good health care and medication in our country. To reimagine our justice system so that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Sentencing reform, investing in public defenders, cash bail reform, decriminalizing marijuana, and investing in diversion programs so that folks can get the help they need and stay out of prison. And doing simple things, but things we should have done a long time ago, like passing the Equal Rights Amendment and making sure that women get equal pay for equal work in our country. And passing the Equality Act to ensure that if you're part of the LGBTQ community, you can't be discriminated against when you go look for a house or an apartment or in your job. If we want to be the most prosperous nation on earth, we need to reform our immigration system to harness the wonderful talent and potential of our immigrants. Where this president has chosen cruelty, I ask America to choose common sense and compassion. One that begins with putting undocumented immigrants on a pathway to citizenship, including our dreamers and their parents and all other undocumented immigrants, as long as they haven't committed a serious crime. And that also honors asylum claims and creates an independent judiciary with enough judges and support staff to actually hear their claims and give them an answer so they're not waiting years and years in limbo. A system that improves the legal immigration process so that more folks can join their families here and strengthen what is already a wonderful immigrant community. And maybe most importantly, we need an immigration system that gets at the root of the challenge. So many people are coming today from Honduras and Guatemala and El Salvador because they can't find safety and opportunity at home. So they come to the United States to try and find it. I've called for a 21st century Marshall Plan to partner with those countries so that people can find safety and opportunity there instead of having to come to the United States in desperation. We've had a big conversation about immigration recently on the Democratic side of the aisle, and I have to say that my plan is bold. It's unapologetic. It calls for decriminalizing those who cross the border, to treat it as a civil violation and not a criminal one, because we will not criminalize desperation in our country. We will not criminalize desperation. If we're going to be the most prosperous nation in the 21st century, it also means prosperity for everybody. We have to raise the minimum wage so that people can earn enough to pay the rent and also put food on the table. We have to invest in things like affordable housing because too many of our families are paying 40 or 50 or 60% of their income for rent. We have to address the biggest long-term challenges that our nation faces. My first executive order, if I'm elected president, will be to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord so that we lead again on sustainability. And then follow that up with a big investment to get to net zero and create tremendous jobs in the clean energy economy, because I believe that the United States and not China or any other nation should lead when it comes to good jobs in that clean energy economy, and we can do it. You see, if we were to go around the room today, there's so many beautiful examples of the progress that we have made in this country. All of us, we stand on the shoulders of people who have made tremendous sacrifices, people who have picketed in the streets and picked crops, folks who have fought in wars and fought discrimination, people that have sat in and stood up and spoke out over the years for justice and for opportunity, for fairness and for progress. That is your legacy, and that is the legacy that I stand by here today. Today I ask you to believe in all of the progress that you have made possible over these 90 years, and to believe that you can elect a president of the United States in 2020. I believe that we're going to beat Donald Trump in November of 2020. And somebody asked me some time ago, well, what's the first thing that you would do if you were elected president? And I told them that on that afternoon I would sign the executive order recommitting our country to the Paris Climate Accord. But I also said that my favorite moment would come a few hours earlier that day, when it's traditional for the incoming president to usher out the outgoing president. I can just imagine being there on the White House lawn with my wife, Erica, and our daughter, Karina, and our son, Cristian, getting ready to usher off Donald Trump and Melania Trump. They'll be getting ready to go off back to New York or to Mar-a-Lago or somewhere. The helicopter will be there on the lawn in the distance with the door open, ready to go. Just before he leaves, just before he walks away, I'm going to tell him, adios. Adios. Thank you very much. Gracias, LULAC. Thank you so much for your leadership. Keep it going. We're counting on you. We know that you can make a difference here in Wisconsin, in Texas, in California, in Florida, in Illinois, in New York, in New Jersey, all throughout our country. Gracias.